Welcome to Can I Park Here? Brought to you by FindAFashionTruck.com. Nashay and Estrell's mission is to inspire future and existing small business owners. They don't claim to be experts. They're simply trying to figure this all out, just like you.
Welcome to Can I Park Here with your hosts, Nashay Snow and
Estrell Riles. Today we'll be talking with Katherine Campau, owner of Sloane Street Style mobile boutique in Detroit, Michigan. Katherine currently works in the advertising field, but 2 years ago she had a dream to venture out and open her own boutique. After being pressed with the overwhelming fear of investing in a brick and mortar business that could possibly fail, she and her husband decided to start a mobile boutique business instead. Afterwhich, Sloane Street Style was born, making it the first fashion truck in the Detroit area. In the episode, we'll find out how Katherine actually came up with her business name. We'll learn the ins and outs of navigating through the city legislation. We'll also find out what types of products Sloane Street Style carries. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Here we go.
we have here Katherine Campau, and we're happy to have her today. She owns her own fashion truck called Sloane Street Style.
I'm happy to be here.
No, happy to have you. So tell us a little bit about your background, like the story behind your business. I read a little bit in the article, and I know you started, I believe, January of last year. So yeah, if you could just give us just a little bit of your background.
Okay. So I have been working in advertising since I graduated from Michigan State University X amount of years ago, which I'd like to not say that number because it makes me feel very old. But and a few years ago, I started having this dream where instead of working in advertising, I owned my own boutique. And it was something that I'd thought about for a really long time, but it always got put on the back burner because I was never in a position where I had that sort of startup capital. So shortly after getting married, I, kept talking to my husband about it. And he said, you know what, let's just do it. Why don't you do a pop-up store, which are very popular in the Detroit area right now. And I said, I can't put all this love and attention and pour myself into a space that I know is just going to get torn down in 3 months. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, we just can't afford to do a full brick and mortar right now. And I said, well, what if we did it on a truck and then we always had it? And the minute I said it, I thought I was so brilliant. We were like, oh my God, that's the smartest idea ever. I was like, I'm the smartest woman in the world. So a quick Google search taught me I'm not the smartest woman in the world. Other people had definitely been doing this, but there weren't any in the Detroit area that we could find. So we kind of threw caution to the wind and started diving in, getting licenses, getting set up as an LLC, starting to figure out what shows to go to get products and things like that. And then he became in charge of finding the truck.
How did you come up with the name?
So the name is kind of a long and boring story. I'll tell you the quick version of it. But right after college, I was traveling through Europe and I was supposed to be meeting up with some people. But due to some travel strikes, I got stranded in London alone. It was my first time out of the country. I'm in London. I don't know anyone. I'm staying at a youth hostel. I was just very timid and shy. And I called my parents. And in traditional, parent fashion, they're both on an extension of the phone and I'm crying. And my mom's like, oh, don't worry, trying to think of anybody she knows around there who might be able to come take care of me. And my dad says, why are you crying? You're in the greatest city in the world. What you need to do is go get yourself a tube map, get on the train, and take yourself somewhere and stop being such a baby. And I did. And I couldn't read the tube map that well because Detroit doesn't have a public transit system, so it was one of my first experiences with that, and I ended up in Sloane Square, and it was the best day of my life. I saw fashion, I saw trends, I saw people being comfortable in who they are, and it became my favorite place. So being that my style is very much a street style, very much transitional pieces, and being out it just made sense to call it Sloane Street Style for that inspiration.
Oh, that's really cool.
I told you it was a really long story.
No. It's good. It's good. It's always interesting to find out how people come up with their names. Now, since you were the first mobile boutique, how did that go with trying to figure out like the permits and the licenses? Because I'm assuming they knew about, of course, the food trucks, but then with you coming along with a fashion truck, did they not know what to do at all? How did you kind of navigate your way through getting the government stuff done?
So in all honesty, I'm still navigating my way through that. Detroit itself, I called every single city. I spent a lot of time on the phone trying to figure things out. Obviously, I have all my licenses to vend and things like that, but pop-up vendorship is a word. It is now. I just said it. So if that's something that is a little bit difficult to identify and to put legislation around. So we can't be anywhere that we're not on private property. And we're still working on the ability to be able to be in public places. Like there's a park, right in downtown Detroit called Campus Martius. Technically, it's city-owned property, so you're not supposed to be on any part of it unless you're contracted with an event. So I'm still working through that because, I'd love to be able to go down there and be in that area. But we really lucked out. We have a place here called Eastern Market, and it's the largest open air market in the U.S., I believe. And so we talk to them and we go there. So we're technically on their private property. We pay for a space there. And then from there, people started seeing it and we started doing private parties and going to different events, lots of festivals and things like that where we can be part of the event that's going on. So we're contracted through that.
No, that's awesome. So you've kind of found a way to at least make it work.
Yeah, and as we're going into our second year, or we're in our second year here, it's now that people understand what it is and they've had the opportunity to see it and see the press coverage that we've gotten. I think they understand it a little bit better. So I'm hoping for a smoother road this year, but I'm definitely still going to be trying to knock down those doors and make it easier for everybody.
Oh, cool.
Now, when you were getting the idea to start the fashion truck, when you mentioned it to friends and family, what were their reactions? Because I know when I mention the concept of fashion trucks to people, they're like, "What? What is a fashion truck? I don't understand." Right? So did you get that same I don't get it? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I completely know the look that you're talking about at people's faces that are like, what? I got some mixed responses. Some people were like, oh, that's cool, but they clearly didn't understand what I meant. Other people, they kind of ignored me as though I was crazy. My one sister was like, oh, so like a Stella and Dot party? And I was like, no. And she's like, so you're just going to sell jewelry at people's homes? And I was like, no. And every time I explained it to her, she didn't get it. And finally I was just like, you know what? Just wait until you see it.
Right.
And my very supportive parents, my mother has great creative vision about things like that. But my dad, when he saw the truck and I started explaining to him what it was and what I was going to be doing, he honestly looked a little sick to his stomach. Like I was insane and like going to be sinking a lot of money into this and that it was just going to be crazy. It wasn't until the interior, then my husband finished out the entire interior of the truck that he started to look a little more comfortable with it.
Like,
my mother, get-go was very supportive, telling all her friends. It was, she was very excited, but that look will always stick with me. So, people do, they think you're a little crazy. And I have some friends who still haven't seen it and they still are kind of like, oh yeah, your truck, right, the truck you got around in. So, it's still coming around, but I think it'll start to get there where people will just understand it. I mean, I have to imagine that food trucks have the exact same thing. Oh, you're just going to drive around and sell food out of the back of a truck? Like,
right.
That sounds crazy as well. And we all know that that's some of the best food ever. So,
right. And, what we found too is it's weird. It's like in certain parts of the country, fashion trucks are huge. California and New York, probably if you go there and ask anyone on the street, they've heard of it. But everywhere in between, it's hit or miss. It's still considered like a pretty new concept.
Right. And it's mostly warmer areas that it makes more sense. I think people also thought I was insane to do it here. Like, we've been closed since the end of December, right, before the holidays. And then we just opened again this past weekend.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you about that because I was wondering, in the Midwest areas and some East Coast areas, do you have a period of time where you just shut down and then just start back up in the spring?
It was pretty cold this weekend, and I'm still sort of chilled to the bone from opening. It was at an event called Spring Fling in one of the suburbs around here, and let me tell you, spring didn't show up. It was snowing here on Friday, and I had no heater, and I was turning purple just watching snow come into my truck, and it was very sad, but we start private parties in the next couple weeks. April tends to be a little better. As long as there's not snow on the ground, I think, we're good to go. But it's definitely dicey in, January, February, March to be out there. So you definitely have to be closed for a little while.
Okay. Now, I know you mentioned that your husband found the truck. So he seems to be a very integral part of the business. What was his process in terms of looking for the truck and, determining what you guys needed in order to function and how it was retrofitted to fit your style, et cetera, et cetera?
Trying to dive into the psyche of why my husband does anything or how he does it is kind of hard, but I'll tell it as best I can. He's amazing at being able to find pretty much anything on the internet. Right. So he was on Truck Finder. We were perusing Craigslist ads, things like that. And then I think he was having conversations with different people about types of trucks. We found somewhere that had an old Detroit Edison truck, which we had looked at several other trucks that were owned by private people, but most of them had been painted some solid color on the outside, and to repaint the entire truck would be extremely expensive. So we were looking for something that was, clean on the outside, just a plain white, something, an open canvas. After talking to his dad, who worked in the film industry and has retrofitted a bunch of cars for film process, we decided that a diesel engine would be best. And from there, he just started searching and searching until we found, and we lost a couple trucks from being a little slow. And I think people, picking them up for different purposes. And we finally found one that, looking back at the interior and how happy I was that first day and showing on my truck, it was disgusting in there. It was filthy. It had these huge, built-in cabinets, which, are all this, aluminum. And my husband was like, oh, these are great. We can use the built-ins. And I was like, yeah. And then once we started getting into it, I was thinking, this is insane, because we had to rip everything out. And luckily my father-in-law, was able to help us with a lot of that, because it requires specialty tools and things like that. So it was, we're both still working full-time jobs. So every night and weekend we are in the shop working to rip out some of these, pieces. And we ended up keeping one of the built-ins in, and I do love it. We built it into a jewelry counter. But I was tearing everything out took 3 months, and we thought that the entire process would take us 3 months. So we were definitely behind, but then luckily my parents helped a lot with, rebuilding. We made fabric covered walls and put them in, and, building the jewelry counter so it was nice and clean and looked bright. And then my husband worked on different displays for me throughout the year.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it was quite the undertaking to find the truck and then to get one that, worked. And we've had some issues already with leaks, things like that. I mean, you just have to be prepared for it unless you're buying a brand new truck, which was not in our price range.
And speaking of that, if you don't mind me asking, for the people out there who are aspiring to, start their own mobile boutique business, do you mind sharing what your startup costs were?
No, not at all. Our truck itself cost just under $10,000 to rebuild the interior, because we did most of the manual labor ourselves, materials and all that, it was about $500 or $600. Had we had to hire somebody, I'm sure it would have been in the thousands, or contract out a space to even use. From there, I mean, the licensing, because you have to have a permit for the vehicle, but you also have to have a permit for people to enter the vehicle. The insurance is pretty much one of the highest startup costs, and it's a consistent cost, because there aren't many companies that will insure them, at least not in our area that we were able to find for insurance, because there's a huge liability there. But all in all, last year, looking back at our taxes with inventory and things like that, for startup, we spent around $25,000.
Okay. That's not bad.
It seems like looking at like several articles and talking to other fashion truck owners, that's about the average. It's usually between $15,000 and $40,000, depending on if a truck owner is able to do some of the work themselves or not. I think it's like higher, like 40, 50, when you have to get everything done by a trained, professional.
Yes, absolutely. And we're just now getting ready. There were things we wanted to do last year, but doing it ourselves, it's either, are you going to save time or are you going to save money? And being that we were saving money, now we are looking at doing a few more things that we didn't have time to last year. So we're doing a little spring facelift, which I think we're going to start today, shortly after this call. My husband doesn't know yet. My room Sunday, but that's fine. So, but yeah, it's constantly evolving. He's always building me new displays, things like that. And we're always rethinking the space because, things are so limited that you just want to make sure it's something that works for you. But most important is making sure that it runs and it's safe.
Now, how do you keep everything from falling down? Have you kind of mastered, how you keep the jewelry safe until you stop and start selling stuff?
Yeah. So everybody who sees it is like, oh, this is great. You just pull up and roll out your stairs and you're ready to go. And I think, no. Everything, gets broken down at the end, tied up, secured, bungee cords. All of the jewelry gets put away, packed down. Anything that's standing upright, gets put into one of our storage bins. Even the clothing that is on the rack, the bouncing back there will cause the hangers to come up and over, and we don't want things to fall on the ground. Oh. So that all gets bungeed together and, taken care of in that way. I mean, everything gets secured and packed down. Even, the stool that I sit on gets laid down flat and secured in the corner. So we have had a couple instances where we pulled away and something got forgotten. And unfortunately for us, both times it was photos, like, decorative photo frames that were up. Ooh. And you just hear crash, smash, glass everywhere. And my husband will look at me and be like, did you forget to take down the frames? I'm like, who, me? No.
Like, that was your job.
Should pull over and I'll be right back. So, but, it's a mistake you make once or twice, and then you really start to get the hang of it, of, setting up and breaking down every time. We definitely have a system going now, but our joke is that, my husband always says, I don't think any other store re-merchandises every single time they open. But we do, because you don't remember where everything was last week, and, things get moved around. So you just make everything work as best you can.
Yeah,
so
pretty
in
cool.
regards to the products that you sell, like, what are the specific items that you display in your truck? Are they handmade? Do you source from local vendors? Where do you get your products?
So my entire store is American made or responsibly sourced. I always knew that when I started my own fashion boutique, that was something that was going to be really important to me. I think there's something to be said for sweatshop-free labor. It's important to me to be able to find items that not only that you like, but that are responsibly made. So we get a lot of stuff from local jewelers, but then a lot of our other stuff we get from going to different shows across the country and finding people. And we've had a really great response of different jewelers who love having their stuff in a Detroit market because they never have before. And they've heard great things about what we have going on here and the resurgence happening in the city. So a lot of our stuff comes from across the country. And we have some things from Canada. And then some of the other responsibly sourced pieces we have are things where all the money goes back to a good cause, like the jewelry line 31 Bits, where all the women in Uganda who make these paper bead necklaces that are just intricate and beautiful, all the money goes back to help them stay from impoverished situations in which they could become endangered.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's where we get everything. But it's hard around here. We have so many talented people in Detroit, but so many events where they can go and sell their own things. Mm-hmm. So people look at me like, well, why are you just carrying around their things? I know this person personally. You know, it's a smaller community. So we have some stuff that we carry, but like I said, a lot of it comes from different artists across the country.
Now, what are some of your best-selling items?
I have a clothing line that I just love, and everybody who comes in loves the pieces from them. They're called KLD, and they're out in San Francisco. And we have a particular top from them. It's a dolman top that it is the most transitional thing you can possibly wear. You can toss it over your yoga top after class and, you know, wear it with yoga pants and flip-flops and go run errands. You can wear it to work with boots and a scarf. And then if you're heading out after, just flip into heels and a necklace and you are ready to go. It is forgiving. It is soft. It is comfortable. It is the epitome of everything I look for in my fashion pieces, you know, to be comfortable, to be happy, but to know that you're presenting yourself in the best way and that you look good and you're, you know, very comfortable in that.
Do you have to travel or like set aside time to travel to some of those like big vendor shows like in Vegas or New York? And then do you just go there one weekend and just buy a bunch of stuff, or do you mostly do it online, or a combination of both?
It really is a combination. Last year when we started, and even this year, we did the shows. We would take some time, go to the shows, which if you have never been to one before, they can be extremely overwhelming. You can't even think of, you know, you're walking through and you're like, no, I should definitely buy 100 of these. And then you're like, wait, I can't afford 100 of these, and who's going to buy 100? And you have to remember that everything that doesn't sell, you know, you're kind of responsible for. So I really, you know, I looked for things online. Anything that I was finding that I wanted to buy for myself, I would start to investigate and see if they had, you know, any licensing to do wholesale, so that I could carry it. So it was really a combination of meeting these people at shows and my own shopping habits drawing me to find different people.
No, that's pretty cool. What are some of the lessons learned in regards to just being a business owner? Because you mentioned you are in advertising. I'm assuming, do you still do the advertising full time and then the truck nights and weekends?
Yes, I do. And it gets to be a lot, but it's definitely worth it. You know, right now, I think the biggest thing I'm learning is how to balance the finances of it so that you can, you know, transition to it full time. You know, I have been reinvesting almost every dime I've made back into the business, but obviously if I didn't have a full-time job, I wouldn't be able to pay my bills. So that's been a hard learning, as well as, you know, like I mentioned before, finding places and knocking down doors and trying to figure out where I can be to promote myself. The thing I think that was hardest for me that I didn't think would be is self-promotion. I've worked in advertising for years. I know how to market people. I know how to market products. I mean, it's what I've been doing for the past 11 years. And that became really difficult when I was trying to tell people why they should come see me and why what I was doing was different and important, because I don't know if everybody has that problem, but self-promotion just was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
No, I can see that, because even with us trying to promote Find a Fashion Truck, it's like there's this line where we don't want to spam people, but we know we need to get ourselves out there. So how do you do that? And there's so many different social networking sites. Which ones do you concentrate on? Which ones are bringing more people back, you know, to our website? So it gets really tricky, and I feel like it can be overwhelming, especially if you're really juggling two jobs too. So it's trying to find enough time to do both.
Right. And then I think one of the main things for me, and the shade kind of had to, you know, bring me back to reality, is that I felt that when starting a new business, the biggest supporters that you should have are friends and family. And so I depended on them to kind of spread the word and help us advertise and, hey, support our friends, support our family, blah, blah, blah. And the reality is it doesn't work like that. Like the people that you look to, to support you the most, it just doesn't work out like that. So we have to find other ways to get the word out about our business, and it's a little disappointing for me, but
and I feel it's like hit or miss because we both have friends and family that are like our biggest fans and they'll repost everything and like stuff. And then you have other people and they're just like, I don't really know what this is. I'm not going to like anything. I'm not going to do anything. And you're like, hey, just help us out.
Like, please, can you share this post? Just please. That's all you have to do is like click one thing and just share it.
Yes. I completely understand. I have friends that have been my friends for years, and I would say they are my best friends, and they have never come to see the truck. They won't like it on Facebook. They don't reshare anything. When I post anything about it, they do not comment. It's just crickets because I don't think they get it. I don't think they understand. And you'd really think that they'd be a huge promoter, but they're kind of like, oh, well, she's kind of crazy, and I don't want to be attached to that. So,
right, like I don't really know what that is. So, yeah,
I don't get it. But and then you have friends who you haven't seen in 15 years who are like, this is amazing. Check out my friend.
Yes. It's crazy. And then you'll have the friend that you consider to be like your bestie, and the person that's ride or die for you. They won't share your business page. They won't like it. But they're sharing YouTube videos of like cats dancing and like random stupid stuff. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that is funny. My best friend, she just isn't big on social media, but I know when I talk to her, or mutual friends of ours, that she spends so much time bragging on my behalf. She's so proud of me, and she tells everybody in person, but she's just not a social sharer in that way. But I know she's getting the word out other ways. So it's really kind of difficult. I mean, and myself, I'm not a big social sharer. My husband tells me all the time, you need to post for the business. And I'm like, isn't that annoying? Do people really want to see that? Like, do they care? And he's like, like you do advertising, that people have to do this. And I'm like, I know, but when I'm doing it, it just feels like I'm annoying everybody I know, like
absolutely.
As if it's a pyramid scheme. Nothing's worse than finding a friend on Facebook who's part of some pyramid scheme and wants you to like everything. And every day is, 6-7 posts about why you should join whatever diet or fad that they're taking part in. And, I don't want to be like that. So it's definitely the hardest part.
It's like finding that balance. Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
so something to say.
Now, which social networks do you mostly depend on? Because I know we have your Facebook site listed, but have you gotten into any of the others, or do you rely primarily on Facebook?
So I am heavy on Facebook, or I was very heavy on Facebook last year, and that's, where everything drives to. My husband connected it with Twitter because, in all honesty, Twitter kind of confuses me.
Ditto.
I can't read the non-English gibberish that is posted there. I don't get it. And there's no punctuation because there's no room for it because you only get so many characters. I mean, it is literally my nightmare, but I know that it's important, and I know that it's somewhere that a lot of people are. So he, being the doll that he is, he just connected it so all my posts go straight to Twitter. But this year, being that I don't have an online store or a website, and that's because most of our stuff is one of a kind, these unique pieces that people are making, it's almost hard to keep up with that documentation. Mm-hmm. So this year I'm thinking of very much relying on Instagram. Having people, post when they're there, when they have something on, and then they can kind of serve this dual purpose where they're excited about what they purchased. They can, post it, and then it's also helping me, get that promotion that I need. And then, so this summer we'll be doing some promotions where the most liked, photo of anybody who posted what they wore, what they found at Sloane Street Style, they'll receive, some sort of gift from the store.
Okay.
Oh, neat.
Have you tried Etsy?
I had an Etsy store a few years ago, and I think there's maybe one item left on it, and that was kind of my first go round of having a store, but it was refurbished antiques and jewelry, things that I would find at estate sales, that I'd fix up, small knickknacks. But that became very difficult to do just because of the shipping and things that are bigger, they're just difficult to try and get from place to place. So we sort of let the Etsy store die out when we started getting into the actual boutique.
Now, what I've found is that Etsy is actually, since you don't want to get into the actual online website store, Etsy might be a good idea because you can list all of your jewelry or one-of-a-kind pieces on there. And since they're smaller, they're easier to ship. But Etsy also has a Sell on Etsy app now. So what you can do is maybe kind of use that as a POS system as well. So when people buy you can have it listed online, but if people buy the item that's listed online in the truck, you can use the app and sell directly from the app, and it'll actually mark as sold on your Etsy site. So nobody can buy it online.
My question is, I thought Etsy was only for people who are actually making those products. I didn't think you could do resale on Etsy.
Well, it has an option when you list it. It has the option to, is this a piece made by you or somebody else?
Okay.
So you can actually specify that in your listing.
Yeah. And I mean, and a lot of the jewelers that we work with, they do have their own individual Etsy site. So I'm not sure how they would feel about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And I was going to say too, and Etsy is kind of tricky also, because I think if you haven't made it, it still should fit into some type of category, like where it's vintage or, it's something special. I don't think you could just sell regular retail on Etsy. Yeah.
Because when I was selling, it was all vintage things that I had found and repurposed.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think I could, do anything that came from these companies that, I found American-made companies that do like the bags and shirts that I sell. So
okay,
yeah, I have been trying to set up a Square site, because I use a Square reader, obviously, like many people. But it is a large undertaking, and also working a full-time job that, takes up 50, 60 hours of my week. I just haven't had the time to dedicate to it, but I'm hoping to start to get to that soon.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like one of our number one questions, especially for people who have a fashion truck and an online store, finding the right POS system so they don't accidentally sell something online that they don't have anymore because they just sold it on a truck that weekend. But it seems like a lot of people are using Square, or they're using like PayPal, because I think maybe PayPal integrates in some GoDaddy websites, and maybe there are other like web hosts where you can integrate PayPal too, so you can make sure that you're keeping a good inventory of your products. But I feel like that is the hardest thing for boutique owners, really trying to figure out what the best system is that isn't going to charge you a lot, that's easy to set up, and that's pretty reliable too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Last year, my system, because I struggled to get the Square inventory system set up. So I would process all my payments through Square, but I was running my own manual process on all the inventory, which was an Excel sheet and some craziness, and me checking things off and writing everything down. And this year I spent a couple weekends in a row really trying to figure out the Square system, and I think I finally got it under control. So, but obviously sometimes you lose an internet signal or something like that, and you have to do a manual process on the payment and still write things down. So it's definitely a lot of double checking everything you've done.
Yeah, and hopefully if they haven't implemented it already, they hopefully they implement like an offline system too, because you're right. Even when you go to some of these craft fairs and things like that, I've seen some vendors where they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't seem to get a connection. And so you don't want to lose that sale, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you do? Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, we set up our own Wi-Fi hotspot in the truck, you know, through our phones, but it can be really hit or miss. And, you know, you can document and like hold a payment and it'll process once you get to a signal, but it won't take it out of the inventory. So you have to go in and manually do that.
That is the trickiest thing. You mentioned earlier, you know, in Detroit, like figuring out where you can park your truck and sell your items. Like, what has been some of your strategies for connecting with some of the local businesses and the craft fairs in order to be able to like have your truck parked in different places in Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, I really lucked out. Once we started being at Eastern Market, people would come in and they'd come up to me and start asking me to, you know, participate and come to them, which worked out really nicely. This year, we're also carrying a line of athletic wear that's made in LA. So we've had a lot of local gyms who own their own private parking lots say, why don't you come here on a Saturday morning? And, you know, after people get out of yoga class, they can step in and shop. And knowing a lot of the local business owners and things like that, it's been sort of easier here in the suburbs. But downtown, nobody really owns their parking. So once you're in Detroit proper, nobody owns a parking lot that you can be in, which means you're then back to being on city streets, which you still can't do. So it's been a little bit easier in the suburbs. We're still trying to, like I said, every single chance I get, trying to knock down doors at, you know, in Detroit. But some of our favorite stores in Detroit, I was surprised. We walked in, you know, last summer and to a store we just love down there that it's like one of my favorite places to go in. Everything's so beautiful and merchandise so well. And the owner looked at me and said, I know who you are. And I was like, oh yeah, I come in here a lot. And he's like, no, you're the one who owns the truck. And I was like, you know me? Like, don't so special, you know, but, so yeah, it's definitely a difficult thing to try and get people to understand, but the people who get it really get it.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sure you have become a local celebrity because, especially if you're still the only fashion truck in the area.
There are a couple others, you know, in the surrounding suburbs that have popped up and started to, you know, come together. I'm trying to coordinate something where we can all be in the same place, sort of like a food truck rally, but a fashion truck rally. Get people to come out and do some shopping. So we all have, you know, our own different angle on what it is we sell or what we do. So I'm hoping to get that, you know, coordinated.
Are there any other vendor or truck events that you participate in besides the Eastern Market?
Yeah, there are food truck rallies that happen, and I've been invited to participate in some of those for this summer. So we're getting that together. And I'm really excited about it. You know, people will shop and they'll eat, but the thing that makes me nervous is I don't want people combining those two and spilling.
Yeah. You have to have like a no food in the truck rule.
Yeah. I'm trying to, you know, I've written a few drafts of, you know, a cute little sign I can put out that's something like, I hope you're enjoying the food you've gotten here. Please make sure to enjoy it all before entering the truck. Like, you know, something that gently suggests, please don't come in here with chili, you know, covered French fries and accidentally spill them on the jewelry or on the clothing.
Yeah, it gets a little uncomfortable sometimes having to tell people, you know, what should be common sense, but even you just have to, you know, buckle down sometime and say, hey, look, you know, I want to protect my stuff. So you have to leave your food outside, leave your kids outside, that type of thing.
Yeah. Kids can, that is something that can be challenging because, you know, a lot of times they come in and they're very well behaved, but there's always the kids who pick up every piece of jewelry, drop it on the ground, you know, and you're just thinking, oh God, if that breaks. Or I did have an unfortunate situation where a child came in, he was eating cheesy popcorn, and he started touching all the clothes and tugging on them with his cheesy fingers. And I was like, oh, no, you know, And that was an awkward situation. Like I gently, pointed out to his guardian that, oops, if things get stained, you don't want, whoever's taking care of you to have to pay for that, do you? So
right. Hint, hint.
they gently got the hint and, put him outside with somebody else who was there helping take care of him. But I was like, oh, goodness, that was awkward.
But you have to protect it because once they're ruined, that's it. Like, that's money that you've now lost.
Exactly. And starting up, you don't have any money that you can spare. Everything gets spent into the business to, get it off the ground.
Yeah. But, it's funny. Well, hopefully this year will be even better for you because from what I've read, most fashion trucks break even the first year. And then the second year is when they start to turn a profit.
Yeah, that is what I'm hoping for. We had some big events last year and, I would love to participate in those and still increase the amount of them. If we had a big event like that every weekend, I'd quit my full-time job right now. But
right.
Yeah, we're definitely hoping to turn a profit this year, no matter how small a profit's a profit. So,
in your area for the events that you participate in, do they normally charge a fee for businesses like yours to participate? And what's the fee?
The fee can be anywhere from $30 for, a bigger event like at Eastern Market, but they have the lowest price, but mostly we pay a couple $100 at least for every time we participate in anything.
Have you participated in any private parties? Because I've seen that come up in some of the forums, and I was just curious because private parties are normally smaller, so I wasn't sure if they were profitable, only if there's like over 20 people or not. So I didn't know if you've had a lot of experience with private parties.
Yeah, we have a minimum of 10 people for our private parties, though it's not required. And every single private party we've gone to, and we do it based on a zone. So it's how far we need to take the truck. Like if you're in zone A, sort of like when you get in a cab at the airport and it says zone A costs this much for us to go to. Zone A, like right in that 15-mile radius of us, we don't charge you to be there. But, you start to get outside of that and it's a nominal fee to cover, our gas to get there. But we've had great success with them because people, if they're inviting you to be there and they're promoting you to be there and their friends all know what they're coming for, they're ready to buy. They're not just wandering in to take a look and say, oh, that was cool.
Right.
They don't want you to come set up in their driveway and be like, that was really neat. Thanks for the show. See ya. So we've had a lot of good success with them. We've got a couple coming up this summer that people are doing block parties. They're like, oh, we're going to do a block party. It's going to be, a huge barbecue on our street and you're going to come there. And I'm like, great. Sounds awesome. I can't wait. So anywhere that somebody's invited you to be, I feel like they're really promoting you to be there.
We're going to ask you 2 questions in our rapid round. So just whatever comes to mind, just blurt it out. And then we'll have one final question for you.
Okay.
So the first question in the rapid round, if you could have one celebrity, entertainer, model, mentor, you name it, in your clothing and visit your mobile boutique, who would it be?
That is going to be a tie between Tina Fey and Amy Poehler.
Ooh.
One, I just want to meet them. And 2, if anybody's taught you that you can be comfortable in anything as long as you're confident and, feel good about yourself, that is those 2 women.
No, totally agree.
Though I'm sure my husband would say Oprah, because Oprah's seal of approval is whatever.
And she can afford to buy a lot too. Like she just buy the whole truck and then give the clothes away. And what advice do you have for future mobile boutique owners?
Start with an empty, clean truck, a linen truck, a bread truck, something that you don't have to spend months tearing out and cleaning up, that you can just dive right in and start creating.
So real quick, Nisha, before you get to that final question, I have to ask, earlier in the show, we mentioned our podcast name. And I don't know if you caught that, but the podcast name is Can I Park There? So I wanted to know what you thought about it and if you got it. Because we thought that it was going to be like hilarious to the truck owners.
I liked it a lot. I thought it made sense. Yeah, I think it's a great name for it.
We wanted something catchy. And, it was like I thought about it. We were trying to think of names and I mentioned it to Nashay and she was like, oh my God, that's it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's everybody who we talk to, everyone who we've done just like an interview for just like the startafashiontruck.com blog or who we've talked to online, like that's one of the biggest issues is figuring out where you can park so you don't get a ticket or not told to move. It's a lot of these cities just don't know what to do with fashion trucks yet.
Exactly. Yes, I liked it. I thought it was perfect. That's the sum of my life. Can I park here?
Right.
Great. So we have a winner.
And then the final question, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail?
That's a good one. I would definitely attempt to go full brick and mortar and the truck and start rallying things together. I think getting a space together where all the fashion trucks could rally would be exactly what I would do if I knew I could not fail.
Ooh, that's nice. And so I'll just, before we go, just dive into that a little bit more. So for you in like the next couple of years, so you see kind of the whole thing, fashion truck, brick and mortar, maybe online store, but kind of just this complete package that would then be your full-time job.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the dream.
All right.
Well, cool. Good luck with that. And your pictures on Facebook are awesome. Love the clothes that are in your truck. I hate that I'm not in the Detroit area. I'm in DC, but if I'm ever in Detroit, I'll make sure to visit the truck.
And I hope you do. I hope anybody who gets to come to our amazing city will stop by and see me.
Yeah, but thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. Thanks again, Katherine. We really appreciate you coming on to the show. And for all the listeners out there, all the links that she mentioned and that we mentioned, we'll be sure to have it in the show notes. What did you think about that episode, Estrell?
I thought the episode was great. And listeners, remember that the reason why we are interviewing these fashion truck owners is so that you can get ideas, tips, and encouragement to, continue on with your businesses and start new ventures as well. So hopefully, you got some good tidbits out of this interview. And, we're going to have more to come. So keep listening. Stay tuned. Subscribe to the podcast and rate us 5 stars, hopefully, if you liked it. Please.
And yes, definitely. And if you go over to startafashiontruck.com and type in Katherine, she will pop right up with the show notes, and you can also replay this episode. And as Estrell just said, please go over to iTunes and rate us. We're really trying to get on to the news and noteworthy, and we cannot do that without your help. But thanks again for listening, and check out our next episode. We hope you'll like it. Take care.
Toodles.